So for today, we are going to go through basically the lesson objective today is really to effectively identify what is the purpose, okay, the audience, as well as the context, right, through situational writing. I know Sec 1, you might be a little bit lost because you have just been introduced the O-level format, exam format for English. It's very different from what you did in PSLE English. Okay, it's only March now and you realize, oh my goodness, why is it so different from primary school English whereby there's still MCQs and fill in the blanks, right? It's completely the opposite for secondary school. Okay, for secondary school, I think just to quickly recap, okay, you have your 4 papers. Paper 1, which comprises of your editing, your situational writing, and your continuous writing. Okay, right? Some schools might start with writing first, some schools might with comprehension first, right? Paper 2, you have 3 texts, right? The first one, section A, is your visual text. Section 2 is your narrative text. Section B, I mean. And section C is your non-narrative text. Basically, all these are comprehension. Okay, but non-narrative text comprises of your summary. Okay, so this is paper 2, and of course, paper 3 and paper 4. Paper 3 is basically it's not really a paper per se, but they call it paper 3. It's actually oral exam. Okay, an oral exam has 2 components. Reading aloud. Oops, sorry. Let me just change it a bit. Okay, you have your reading aloud. Oops. And the last component is actually your spoken interaction for oral exam. Okay, and then lastly, your paper 4. Paper 4 is basically your listening comprehension. Okay, so this is the overview. All these components will add up to your total marks for your O-levels English. And because you're Sec 1, I think it's really important to emphasize even now, okay, that English paper is really important. Because if you want to go to courses in polytechnics, if you want to enter JC, English is definitely compulsory for a lot of the courses in polytechnics as well. Okay, so you want to qualify for a certain course in polytechnic, you need to at least pass English, right? So I think it's really important now, even though you're just Sec 1, but I still want to emphasize on this, okay? So for today, actually, if you look, there are so many components, but today we will just be focusing on your situational writing first, okay? And situational writing is actually relatively easy to score, okay? And later on, you'll understand why. Right? So situational writing as well as a little bit on composition. So that's what we do. And also at 88 Tuition, we are very concerned about current affairs as well. The reason being, for current affairs, it can appear in your editing, right? Because the text that the examiner or the setter of the paper is going to choose, you will not know. You can't predict. Okay, but as long as you're well informed and you read up a lot, which we are doing, we are making a very conscientious effort to do that for our English classes, okay? We want to go through as many current affairs as possible with you. So you know a lot of content, you have a lot of information. When it comes to writing, if you were to write an expository writing, you will have a lot of information. When you're reading comprehension text, okay, especially the non-narrative text, this one, okay, when you're reading non-narrative text, you will know what maybe if let's say the non-narrative text is about social media, for example, okay, if it's about festivities. So if you read extensively, you will have more information and you will stand to have an advantage, okay? And then also, of course, for spoken interactions as well. When we go through current affairs with you, you will be able to, engage in more conversation with your examiner, right? When it comes to oral exam. Okay, so that's why we are going through current affairs. This is what we want to deliberately do so that, you can get a head start. Yeah. So we will go through situational writing first for today. Yeah, I have seen some of your homework. Some of you have done, some of you have not. Okay, those who have done it, I have given you some comments also. So I really highly recommend you to finish your homework so I can read through it before our lesson and give you some comments and feedback. Yeah. Okay, so for today, let's not talk about current affairs first. For situational writing, it's in your paper 1. And there are different genres. Okay, you might have learned it in school. You might not have started on sit writing. But basically, situational writing, as the name suggests, you are given a situation. Okay, based on the situation or based on the text, it can be an advertisement, a poster, a brochure, a pamphlet, or whichever. Okay, based on the text given to you, you are supposed to deliver your task or to achieve your task, basically. Okay, and there are different genres, and today we will focus on informal email. Okay, we want to learn how to write an email. This genre is email, but sometimes you might not be tested on email. Sometimes you might be tested on things like formal and or informal letters. Okay, if there's informal email, there is also formal email. Sometimes you are expected to write a speech. Okay, sometimes you are expected to write like a complaint letter or whichever. Okay, so then we'll talk about it. Sometimes you are asked to write a note, just a note. Okay, so depending on the genre. Yeah. Okay, so like I said, the objective of today's lesson is really to find out the purpose, audience, and context. What do we mean by purpose? Basically, purpose is why are you writing it? Okay, audience is who, right? And in terms of context, since it's situational writing, we are looking at what situation are we in right now, right? And of course, very important, based on context, you will be able to identify whether should you be writing informal or formal email or letter or whichever. Okay, so basically that's PAC. Your teachers in school, I'm sure they might have covered it, or even if they have not covered it, they'll probably talk a lot about it, right, for English lessons. Yeah. Okay, so just now was in general, yeah, for situational writing. Okay, now we are going to just narrow it a little bit down to what we are doing today, which is your informal email. Okay, so in terms of informal email as a genre, usually the audience, since it is informal, the audience are usually either your family members, your classmates, your friends, or whichever. You do not need to be formal. Okay. By not formal doesn't mean you scold vulgarities and all those. Okay. By not being formal, you still have to be courteous. Correct? Right? So in this case, still, although it's informal, but there is still a degree of formality to it. So you have to be careful with that. Okay. So by informal, you can use a casual tone. Okay. You can use contractions. So what are contractions? Contractions, example, she is. I can actually change it to she's. Okay. Would have. I can change it to would have. Okay. So these are contractions whereby you use the open inverted comma and shorten the words. Okay. So these are contractions. So for informal email, you can use contractions. Okay. But not for formal. Formal email, you can't. If you're writing to your principal, please do not use contractions. Yeah. Okay. And then lastly, we've went through audience and tone. Basically, tone falls under context. Right? Remember your PAC, right? PAC, purpose, audience, context. So now let's take a look at purpose. Okay. The purpose of an informal email can be to inform someone. It can be to ask for opinion. It can be to invite for party because it's informal. Okay, so these are just some examples, but of course, this list can go on. Okay, let's go to the next page. Now, when we talk about writing, situational writing, okay, we always need to consider, even not situational writing, even your continuous writing, there will always be a format. You will be marked according to how you organize your ideas, and there should be a format to follow. Okay, so in this case, for informal writing, generally, okay, you will always have an introduction. So it's like a fishbone, right? I draw a fishbone over there. So the head of the fish skeleton is the introduction. The tail is the conclusion. Anything else inside? This is body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2, body paragraph 3, depending on the. Okay, so this fishbone basically is like the structure of the essay. There must be a certain structure so that it's more organized. Your ideas flow very well, okay, and transit very well. So this is the format generally for informal writing. That if it's a letter or even email, there should be salutation. Salutation means dear so and so. Yeah. Okay. And of course, because it's informal, you can actually ask for well-being. How are you? I've missed you so much from the last time we've met. Because it's informal, right? It's usually for people whom you are close with. Okay. Excuse me. So body paragraphs, you will need to state your purpose and then also answer all the points. Okay. By all the points later on, these are all that are stated in the question. Okay. Later on, we'll look at one example and you know what I mean. Okay. For situational writing, do take note that you are given 10 marks for content, 10 marks for language. Okay, total is 20 marks for situational writing, right? But I would say it's easier to get the content marks because as long as you answer the points in the question, there are a total of 6 points. As long as you answer the points in the question, you will get 1 mark already. Okay, so try, that's why I always encourage students to really try to score for your situational writing because that will help you to pull up your marks, your total marks for paper 1. A lot of students struggle with continuous writing, so they have to do better for your situational writing to pull up the marks. Yeah. So take note of the tone. Like I said, even though you are writing to your close ones, doesn't mean you are rude. It doesn't mean you just hurl vulgarities at them. You need to still speak in a warm and enthusiastic tone. Okay. Now the conclusion part, okay, which is like the tail of the fishbone, you can maybe conclude by expressing a hope. I hope you will consider going with me. I wish you will be, you will get better, right? Or you can also just summarize the main points by writing. So that will be the conclusion. Okay. Okay. Now, just now was the fishbone for informal writing in general. Okay. Now, like I said, informal writing sometimes can be a letter, sometimes can be an email, sometimes can be a speech, right? So now let's just zoom into if it is an email, how should you write it? Okay. If it is an email, everything is the same as before, right? The introduction, the body, the conclusion. Oh, sorry, this one. Okay. Everything is the same, except that because it's an email, okay, you need to have sender's email address. Sorry, this is not sender, this is recipient. Okay, you need to have the recipient's and you need to have the sender's email address as well. Okay, the recipient's email address, the sender's email address, and very importantly, for email, you must have a subject. Okay, so subject is here. So it's a suggestion for holiday in June 2021. So introduction, salutation, very important, dear so and so. And because it's an